Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know who I am, my name is Shook. I make videos for NBA. I also cover a bunch of other content. You can find my posts here. My username is Shook. I make edits if there is news. There is one new piece of news to monitor tomorrow, and starting lineup news to monitor with the Bulls. People talk strategy. Here's some great stuff here. You can ask me questions. I'll respond to you and stuff like that. So yeah, great place to be. And if you ever need to get a hold of me privately, you can do so on Twitter at ToryLangley1992. Let's take a look at my lineup from tonight. So, starting off this playoffs with a nice night, like starting off last year's playoffs. We absolutely nuked last year's playoffs, starting it off great again. Also, forgot to mention if you're interested in like more in-depth content, I have my Discord. I'll leave a link in the comments where I have player pools for cash and GPPs. I give you a core of 4 players to play. Um, In-depth private videos going over like rotations. I'll explain more later with NAW and why I was so high on NAW tonight. Stuff like that. Just a lot more stuff. I also cover the XFL. We talk about like esports and stuff like that. We have people doing prize picks. I don't do prize picks. I can't play on it, but we have people doing that. Esports, NASCAR, PGA, pretty much everything. Discord link will be down below. So as you can see in my lineup tonight, it went with Lowry, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, DeAndre Hunter, Karl-Anthony Towns, NAW, Kyle Anderson, and Jared Vanderbilt. So the core that I have for today was Kyle Lowry. He nuked. Jimmy Butler. He absolutely blew Anthony Edwards out of the water. So that was huge. Anthony Edwards was my fade today that I didn't want. And then Karl-Anthony Towns was a core play for me. He nuked. And I had NAW as a core play. And literally last minute, I got off him for DeAndre Hunter as a core play. But everyone knew I was playing NAW anyway, so you can just add him as like a 5th core play. So 4 out of 5 on the core. Hunter got in massive, massive foul trouble. Tyler Hero got in massive foul trouble. Eric Spoelstra, they were down 20 and they pulled him with a minute to go in the second quarter. I don't understand that coaching at all. And then Jared Vanderbilt had his worst game against Minnesota that I've ever seen in my entire life. But let me explain my thinking with NAW and what you get in the private videos that I post. So, like, they needed somebody on ball. Like, look at their lineup tonight. Like, I figured that NAW was probably going to play like low 20s minutes, and I thought he could also eat into Torian Prince. So that was like that was my reasoning for going to NAW. Obviously he's a good point per minute guy. So if you give NAW like 22, 23 minutes, he's probably going to pay off that price tag. And he was way under owned in my opinion. Jalen Noel was 30 to 35% owned in some contests, and there was an outside chance Jalen Noel was going to DNP. So that was my reasoning to go to NAW. He's much lower owned. He was the pivot off Jalen Noel. I felt much confident in his minutes. They need someone on ball. And then also my other stance tonight was Kyle Anderson. I don't understand why people were so scared to pay $7,600 for Kyle Anderson. We've seen him in these roles with no Gobert just absolutely crush slates, and he stuffs the stat sheet. He doesn't need to score the ball. I mean, the pace of this game was great, so I don't understand why everyone was so scared to play Kyle Anderson today at that price tag. He was a great play. Vanderbilt tanked me from binking, but that's the way she goes. Great night. Hope you guys had a great night as well. Let's go over the slate. So I believe Chicago is going to run 8 bodies. DeMar 1, Vooch 2, Levine 3, Kobe White 4, Pat 5, Pat 6, Io 7, Caruso 8. And then, I don't know, do they go Drummond? I really have no idea. So, you're going to see a tight rotation here. It's a must-win game. So, DeMar DeRozan at the top is definitely my least favorite Chicago Bull tomorrow. Toronto has done a very good job defensively with DeMar DeRozan. They like to double him a lot, too. So, I think that's just going to leave more opportunities for guys like Zach LaVine. So Zach LaVine is by far and away my favorite play on Chicago. I think DeMar is my least favorite, and if he's going to be popular, I'm just going to fade. Like I said, Toronto does a phenomenal job against him. They've doubled him in the past. I feel like they're going to do that again tomorrow. So yeah, I think DeMar is a pretty easy fade for me. If he goes off, I'll just take the L and move on. So Don't like DeMar. I know the pricing does seem soft. It is, but I don't like DeMar. I think Levine's a great play, and I think he's going to be very, very popular tomorrow. I think he's just too cheap. And then, like I said, with how Toronto defends tomorrow, I think it's just going to leave a ton of opportunity for Levine. So I really like Levine here. I think Vooch is solid as well. 7-4 does seem a bit too cheap as well. Not a good matchup, so I think he's a good play, but wished the match was better. But price adjusted does seem fine. Kobe White at 5-3 has played phenomenal of late. I think minutes wise for him, I don't know. I think we get low 20s. I really don't know. But if he's playing well, I think he could play a bit more. I think he's still playable at 5-3, but definitely not my favorite. And then we're going to have to keep an eye on the starting lineup. Do they start Patrick Williams? Do they start Alex Caruso? If I had to guess, I think they start Alex Caruso here. And if that's the case, I think Alex Caruso is probably going to be one of the more popular values on the slate. I think we get, I don't know, around low 20s for him if he starts. If he comes off the bench, I don't have as much interest, but if he does start, I think he's one of the better value plays on the slate. So I do like Caruso for value. If Patrick Williams starts, he's playable, but wish he was cheaper. If he comes off the bench, still playable, but not as much interest. And obviously Patrick Beverley is going to start, and I think we get, mid 20s minutes for him, like 20, I don't know, low 20s to mid 20s, making him a reasonable value at 4,400. Under Toronto, so you're going to see an 8-man rotation here for Toronto. You're going to see Siakam, Fred, Scotty, that's 3, OG 4, Pirtle 5, Precious 6, Boucher 7, Gary Trent 8. So they're going to run their starters into the ground. We know this. Nick Nurse loves to do this, so you're going to see huge minutes for Siakam, Fred, Scotty, OG. Pirtle, not going to play huge minutes, and then you're going to see, like I said, Precious, Boucher, Trent. So Siakam is probably my least favorite spend up on this slate. I just think it's much easier to spend down for like Levine or go up a few $100s for Brandon Ingram. Now it doesn't mean he's out of play, but he just doesn't stand out to me. Or I'd much rather just take the discount on Fred VanVleet. I think we get close to 40 minutes from Fred VanVleet here. Tough spot, but don't care about that. I think he's an interesting GPP play. Definitely do like Fred VanVleet here. Scotty Barnes, OG, they're just there for me. Once again, would you rather play Levine or Scotty Barnes? I don't know. Which is probably going to leave both pretty low owned, which makes them interesting for tournaments. But they're just like filler plays for me. If I land on one as like a last minute, I think that's okay. Jakob Hurtle here, I think is just too cheap. Now, minutes wise, I would not be shocked if he only plays like 24, but I would also not be shocked if he plays like 33. So kind of like a Jovel situation here where they're like the minutes, sure, might be a little bit in question, but I think regardless if he plays like 25 or like 33, he's probably going to pay off this price tag. He's just too cheap. And if he does get that 33-minute game in him, he's probably going to nuke the slate. So I do like Pirtle a lot. Precious is overpriced from the minutes I think he'll get. Chris Boucher is playable. I think I'd rather go Boucher over Precious. And then Gary Trent, I feel like, is going to be one of the most popular value plays on the slate tomorrow. Another guy that I'm like, okay, if he plays very badly, he could get benched and only play like 18 minutes. But again, if he's playing well, he could play over 30. So there's arguments for fading. There's arguments for playing. I do think he's a pretty good value. We're starving for value on this slate, and he does have 30 plus fantasy point upside in him at 4K. You really never get that on playoff slates like this. So yeah, Gary Trent's a pretty good value play, but definitely has the range of outcomes to just completely busting even at that price tag. I think there's an interesting pivot that I'll talk about next, and we'll just go over that right now. So I think Isaiah Joe is almost an identical play to Gary Trent. Now, Gary Trent's definitely a better play, but Isaiah Joe, kind of the same thing. Very scoring line. Sometimes we'll get extended if he's playing well. Sometimes he'll get benched if he's not. Now, I think the minute ceiling is much higher for Gary Trent, and I think Gary Trent has the higher ceiling and the better role. But if Gary Trent's going to be like 4x the ownership of Isaiah Joe, I think it definitely makes sense to possibly consider going to Isaiah Joe over Gary Trent. It's definitely crazy, but something to consider for like large field tournaments. Now, I'm not saying to play Joe over Trent. I'm not saying to do that, but I thought I would mention that. I think Joe is definitely an okay to solid value. Let's go back to the top. I think Shai looks great. Now, how would I rank him and Ingram? I think I'd rank Ingram ahead of him slightly, but I think both look great. SGA, I think, is overpriced. Jalen Williams is going to play all the minutes he can handle here. I still think, kind of like Slow-Mo today, I think people are going to be scared of paying this price for him. Now, he's not the same play as Slow-Mo. Slow-Mo's definitely better. But I still think he's even a solid play at 6'7". Lou Dort is like a pretty safe play to me at 5'4". Once again, they're going to need him out there for his defense. So I think he plays a ton of minutes. He seems like a very, very safe play to me. Too solid. Jalen Williams, the big minutes for him, I have no idea. But if you get like low 20s minutes for Jalen Williams, he's going to stand out as one of the better value plays on the slate. So I definitely do have interest in Jalen Williams, but there's also times where he doesn't play a ton. He could absolutely burn you. So once again, that's going to be another thing where if he's going to be popular, I think that's definitely a fade. If he's going to be low owned, I'm fine taking shots there. We already went over Joe, and then that's I think what's going to be the rotation. It's probably going to be these these um these five, Joe, and then I don't even know. Maybe some J or E. I really don't know. I don't think it's necessary to go to any of those guys. All right, let's go over the Pelicans. I think Ingram looks phenomenal. He's probably my favorite spend up on the slate. Must win games here. It's pace up spot. His usage is through the roof. I absolutely love Brandon Ingram here. I think CJ is okay. I think I'd much rather play Fred VanVleet, but I think he's okay. Jonas, it's up to you on how many minutes you think he plays. I'm worried about the matchup. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays 18. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays 30. Always makes him a good tournament play because everyone's scared of that and they don't want to click on his name. So, yeah, I think he's an interesting tournament play. Trey Murphy, kind of like Jalen Williams, will play a ton of minutes. I prefer Jalen Williams, but Trey Murphy does have a ceiling when he's getting a shot, and he's just going to play a huge, huge minute. So he's definitely in play. Not my favorite. Herb Jones, kind of like Lou Dort, another very, very safe play that's just gonna play a boatload of minutes. I think Lou Dort has the higher ceiling, so I might prefer Lou Dort there. Larry Nance, if he plays, I expect him to play. I think we get around 20 minutes for him, making him a solid value. Josh Richardson, I think we get high teens minutes, which I don't. I'd much rather play Alex Caruso, and then Najee Marshall. I only think we get around 10 minutes for him. I don't think we need to go there, but playable for large field tournaments. Hope this video helped you guys out, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow.